Question 1. Benchmark analysis indicates that a significant number of applicants to the American University entrance exam often seek ways to enhance their performance. One applicant, struggling with a particular section of the preparatory material, considers several options to address their difficulties. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of academic integrity and the guidelines for the American University entrance exam? Option A. The applicant uses an advanced AI writing tool to generate comprehensive answers to all practice questions, believing it will demonstrate their understanding of the topics. Option B. The applicant asks a friend who has already taken the exam to provide them with the exact answers to practice questions from a similar syllabus. Option C. The applicant seeks detailed explanations of challenging concepts from their teachers, uses official study guides for practice, and works through problems independently to solidify their understanding. Option D. The applicant purchases a set of memorized answers to common questions from an online service, intending to recall them during the exam. Correct answer is C. The applicant seeks detailed explanations of challenging concepts from their teachers, uses official study guides for practice, and works through problems independently to solidify their understanding. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for university applicants, navigating the admissions process with a clear understanding of academic integrity and the university's expectations. Professional challenge lies in ensuring that the applicant's submission accurately reflects their own abilities and efforts, while also adhering to the American University entrance exam's guidelines on originality and ethical conduct. Misrepresenting one's work can have severe consequences, including disqualification from the exam and potential future academic repercussions. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate assistance and academic dishonesty. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves the applicant seeking clarification on specific areas of difficulty from their teachers or mentors, utilizing provided study materials, and engaging in independent practice. This aligns with the principles of academic integrity emphasized by the American University entrance exam, which expects candidates to demonstrate their own knowledge and skills. Regulatory frameworks governing university entrance exams typically mandate that all submitted work must be the original creation of the applicant. Seeking help for understanding concepts or practicing problems independently is permissible and encouraged as part of the learning process. Incorrect approach is analysis. Submitting work that has been substantially completed by another individual, even if with the applicant's knowledge, constitutes plagiarism and academic dishonesty. This directly violates the core principle of originality expected in all academic assessments and is a clear breach of the American University entrance exam's integrity rules. Using AI-generated content to answer exam questions without proper attribution or understanding of the underlying concepts is also a form of academic misconduct. While AI tools can be helpful for research or drafting, their direct use in generating exam responses bypasses the applicant's own learning and critical thinking, which is what the exam aims to assess. This circumvents the spirit and letter of the exam's integrity requirements. Relying solely on memorized answers from past exams or external sources without genuine comprehension of the subject matter demonstrates a lack of independent learning and understanding. This approach undermines the purpose of the entrance exam, which is to evaluate an applicant's preparedness and aptitude, not their ability to recall pre-existing solutions. It is a form of academic dishonesty by misrepresenting one's knowledge. Professional reasoning. Professionals in educational admissions and examination bodies are guided by principles of fairness, integrity, and the accurate assessment of candidate capabilities. When faced with situations involving potential academic misconduct, the decision-making process should involve 1. Clearly understanding the specific rules and regulations of the examination body, in this case, the American University entrance exam. 2. Evaluating the applicant's actions against these established standards. And 3. Applying consistent and fair consequences for any breaches. The focus is always on upholding the integrity of the assessment process and ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their own merits. Question 2. Benchmark analysis indicates that a university admissions committee is reviewing an application from a student with a highly compelling personal story of overcoming significant adversity. While the student's narrative is exceptionally moving and demonstrates resilience, their academic record falls slightly below the stated minimum requirements for admission, particularly in standardized test scores. A senior faculty member, who is aware of the student's background, has strongly advocated for their admission, citing the student's potential and unique perspective. The admissions committee is deliberating on how to proceed. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of fair and regulated university admissions? Option A. Admit the student solely due to the strong recommendation from the senior faculty member, without a detailed review of their academic qualifications against the published criteria. Option B. Postpone the decision indefinitely, stating that the committee needs more time to consider the unique circumstances, without establishing a clear timeline or process for resolution. Option C. Admit the student based on the compelling personal narrative and the faculty member's strong recommendation, overriding the slight shortfall in academic prerequisites. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's file against all published admissions criteria, including academic performance, extracurricular activities, and essays, and convene a meeting of the admissions committee to discuss the case, considering the faculty member's input within the established policy framework. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's file against all published admissions criteria, including academic performance, extracurricular activities, and essays, and convene a meeting of the admissions committee to discuss the case, considering the faculty member's input within the established policy framework. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for university admissions committees, balancing the desire to admit promising students with the need to adhere strictly to established admissions criteria and policies. The challenge lies in navigating potential biases, ensuring fairness, and upholding the integrity of the admissions process, all while making a decision that is defensible and aligned with the university's mission and regulatory obligations. Pressure to admit a specific student, especially one with a compelling personal narrative, can create a conflict between subjective judgment and objective adherence to established rules. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's file against the published admissions criteria, seeking input from relevant admissions officers and committee members, and documenting the decision-making process. This aligns with the principles of fairness, transparency, and due process inherent in university admissions. Regulatory frameworks for university admissions, while not always codified as strict laws in the same way as financial regulations, are governed by institutional policies, accreditation standards, and principles of equal opportunity. Adhering to these ensures that all applicants are evaluated on the same basis, preventing arbitrary or discriminatory decisions. The emphasis on documented evidence and committee consensus reinforces the integrity and accountability of the admissions process. Incorrect approaches analysis. Admitting the student solely based on the compelling personal narrative, despite not meeting all stated academic prerequisites, represents a failure to uphold established admissions policies. This approach risks setting a precedent for inconsistent application of criteria, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism or bias. It undermines the credibility of the admissions process and could violate principles of equal opportunity if other applicants with similar narratives but less compelling circumstances are denied admission. Admitting the student based on the recommendation of a senior faculty member, without a comprehensive review of their qualifications against the published criteria, also constitutes a regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses the established admissions committee process and introduces undue influence, potentially compromising the objectivity of the decision. It can lead to a perception of unfairness and may violate institutional policies designed to ensure a standardized and equitable evaluation of all applicants. Deferring the decision indefinitely without a clear process for re-evaluation or a defined timeline is an abdication of responsibility. This approach fails to provide a timely resolution for the applicant and suggests a lack of commitment to the admissions process. It can also create uncertainty and anxiety for the applicant, which is professionally unsupportive and does not align with the principles of efficient and fair administrative practice. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions must employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and criteria. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing all relevant admissions policies and guidelines. 2. Objectively evaluating each applicant's qualifications against these criteria, using documented evidence. 3. Seeking collaborative input from the admissions committee and relevant stakeholders when faced with complex cases or potential exceptions. 4. maintaining thorough and transparent documentation of the entire decision-making process. 5. Upholding principles of fairness, equity, and due process for all applicants. Question 3. Investigation of an applicant's profile for admission to a prestigious university requires careful consideration of various evaluation methods. Which of the following approaches best reflects the principles of a fair and comprehensive university entrance examination process? Option A. Prioritizing applicants whose families have a history of substantial financial contributions to the university. Option B. Solely relying on the applicant's performance on the standardized entrance examination. Option C. Giving significant weight to letters of recommendation from well-connected alumni. Option D. A thorough review of the applicant's academic transcripts, extracurricular activities, and personal essays, alongside their standardized test scores. The correct answer is D. A thorough review of the applicant's academic transcripts, extracurricular activities, and personal essays, alongside their standardized test scores. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the core principles and ethical considerations inherent in university admissions, specifically within the context of the American University Entrance Exam Framework. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate and ethically sound method for evaluating an applicant's potential, balancing academic merit with a holistic view, while adhering to the implicit guidelines of fairness and equal opportunity that underpin such examinations. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between superficial assessment and a genuine, equitable evaluation process. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the applicant's academic record, extracurricular achievements, and personal essays. This method is correct because it aligns with the principles of a holistic admissions process, which is widely recognized as best practice in university entrance evaluations. Such an approach seeks to understand the applicant as a whole person, recognizing that standardized test scores, while important, do not solely define an individual's potential for success in higher education. This aligns with the spirit of the American University Entrance Exam, which aims to identify capable students who can contribute to the university community. An approach that solely focuses on the applicant's standardized test score is incorrect because it represents a narrow and potentially biased evaluation. This fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of academic potential and can disadvantage applicants who may excel in other areas or have faced unique circumstances affecting their test performance. It overlooks the qualitative aspects of an applicant's profile that are crucial for assessing their fit and future contributions to the university. An approach that prioritizes recommendations from influential alumni is incorrect because it introduces an element of undue influence and potential favoritism, compromising the integrity and fairness of the admissions process. Admissions decisions should be based on objective criteria and a thorough evaluation of the applicant's own merits, not on external connections or perceived social capital. This undermines the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. An approach that relies primarily on the applicant's family's financial contribution is incorrect because it fundamentally violates the ethical principles of merit-based admissions and equal opportunity. University admissions should be based on an applicant's academic and personal qualifications, not their socioeconomic status or their family's ability to donate. This approach would create an inequitable system and would be contrary to the educational mission of most universities. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to fairness, objectivity, and a holistic understanding of each applicant. Professionals should always refer to the established guidelines and ethical codes governing university admissions, prioritizing a comprehensive evaluation that considers all relevant aspects of an applicant's profile. When faced with ambiguity, seeking guidance from senior admissions officers or adhering to established protocols for handling complex cases is crucial. The ultimate goal is to ensure that admissions decisions are equitable, transparent, and serve the best interests of both the applicant and the institution. Question 4. The efficiency study reveals that a significant number of candidates are struggling with specific question types on the American University Entrance Exam. A contact within the exam administration offers to provide advance access to a sample of upcoming exam questions, suggesting this would allow for targeted curriculum adjustments to improve candidate performance and overall exam efficiency. As a student involved in the efficiency study, what is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action? Option A. Accept the offer of advance access to the exam questions and discreetly share them with a small group of trusted peers to help them prepare. Option B. Accept the offer of advance access to the exam questions and use them to identify areas for curriculum improvement, believing this will ultimately benefit future candidates. Option C. Express gratitude for the offer, but suggest a delay in providing the questions to allow for further discussion on how to best utilize them for efficiency improvements. Option D. Immediately and unequivocally refuse the offer of advance access to exam questions, citing the importance of maintaining exam integrity and fairness. The correct answer is D. Immediately and unequivocally refuse the offer of advance access to exam questions, citing the importance of maintaining exam integrity and fairness. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge where a student, acting in a capacity that influences academic integrity, is presented with information that could be misused. The challenge lies in balancing the desire to improve institutional processes with the absolute requirement to uphold ethical standards and prevent academic misconduct. The pressure to demonstrate efficiency gains can create a temptation to overlook or rationalize ethically questionable actions. Careful judgment is required to identify the boundary between legitimate process improvement and academic dishonesty. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately and unequivocally rejecting the offer of unauthorized access to exam materials. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of academic integrity and the specific regulations governing university entrance exams, which strictly prohibit any form of cheating or unauthorized access to assessment content. Upholding these principles ensures a fair and equitable testing environment for all candidates and maintains the credibility of the examination process. This proactive stance prevents any potential involvement in academic misconduct and demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that involves accepting the offer and using the information to improve the exam by identifying weaknesses, even with the stated intention of preventing future cheating, is fundamentally flawed. This constitutes complicity in academic dishonesty. The unauthorized access itself is a violation, regardless of the subsequent intentions. It undermines the integrity of the exam and creates an unfair advantage, even if the student believes they are acting for a greater good. This approach fails to recognize that the means unauthorized access are as critical as the ends, exam improvement. Another incorrect approach would be to accept the offer and use the information for personal gain, such as to improve one's own performance or that of a select group. This is direct academic misconduct and a severe ethical breach, violating all principles of fair assessment and academic honesty. It directly exploits the unauthorized access for unfair advantage. Finally, an approach that involves delaying a decision or seeking to negotiate the terms of the offer, rather than immediately rejecting it, is also problematic. This indecisiveness can be interpreted as a willingness to consider unethical actions. The professional obligation is to immediately and decisively refuse any offer that compromises academic integrity. Prolonging the consideration of such an offer creates a risk of further ethical compromise. Professional reasoning. Professionals in academic settings must operate with a clear understanding of ethical boundaries and regulatory requirements. When faced with a situation that could compromise integrity, the decision-making process should involve 1. Immediate identification of the ethical and regulatory conflict. 2. Decisive rejection of any action that violates established principles or rules. 3. Prioritization of academic integrity and fairness above perceived efficiency gains or personal benefits. 4. Seeking guidance from appropriate university authorities if unsure about the correct course of action, but never engaging in or condoning unethical behavior. Question 5. Compliance review shows that an applicant for the American University entrance exam has been asked to describe their leadership experiences. The applicant was a member of a student club that organized a successful fundraising event, but they were not in a formal leadership role. They are considering describing their involvement in a way that implies they were a primary organizer and decision-maker for the event. What is the most appropriate course of action for the applicant? Option A. Omit any mention of the fundraising event to avoid misrepresenting their leadership experience, focusing instead on other less significant activities. Option B. State that they were a leader in the student club without providing specific details about the fundraising event to allow the admissions committee to infer their leadership capabilities. Option C. Exaggerate their role to highlight their initiative and ability to contribute to the university community, implying they were a key leader in the event's success. Option D. Describe their involvement accurately, focusing on their specific contributions to the fundraising event and acknowledging their role as a contributing member. The correct answer is D. Describe their involvement accurately, focusing on their specific contributions to the fundraising event and acknowledging their role as a contributing member. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires the applicant to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of university admissions, specifically concerning the integrity of the application process and the fair evaluation of candidates. The applicant must balance the desire to present themselves favorably with the obligation to be truthful and adhere to the university's stated policies. The challenge lies in identifying the boundary between legitimate self-promotion and misrepresentation, which can have serious consequences for the applicant and the institution. The correct approach involves accurately and honestly reflecting their experiences and achievements, even if they are not as extensive as they might wish. This demonstrates integrity and respect for the admissions process. Specifically, it aligns with the ethical principle of honesty and the regulatory expectation that all information provided in an application is truthful and verifiable. Universities, like many regulated entities, rely on the accuracy of submitted information for fair decision-making. Misrepresenting qualifications, even in a seemingly minor way, undermines this trust and violates the spirit of fair competition. An incorrect approach would be to embellish or fabricate experiences. This is a direct violation of the ethical duty of honesty and can be considered a form of academic misconduct. Universities have policies against plagiarism and misrepresentation, and such actions can lead to immediate disqualification from the admissions process or even revocation of an offer of admission if discovered later. Another incorrect approach would be to omit relevant information that, while not explicitly asked for, would provide a more complete picture of their suitability. While not outright fabrication, strategic omission can also be a form of misrepresentation if it is done with the intent to mislead the admissions committee. This fails to uphold the principle of full disclosure and can be seen as an attempt to gain an unfair advantage. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a careful self-assessment of the information to be presented. Applicants should ask themselves, is this statement factually accurate? And does this accurately represent my involvement or achievement? If there is any doubt about the truthfulness or potential for misinterpretation, it is best to err on the side of caution and present the information in a clear, unambiguous, and verifiable manner. Consulting the university's admissions guidelines and any stated honor codes can also provide valuable clarity on acceptable practices. Question 6. When evaluating an applicant's submission for the American University Entrance Exam, which approach best demonstrates a commitment to identifying candidates with strong analytical and critical thinking skills, as required by the exam's stated objectives? Option A. Focusing primarily on the applicant's stated passion for a particular field of study, as indicated in their personal statement, without deeply scrutinizing the evidence provided. Option B. Giving significant weight to a letter of recommendation from a highly respected academic figure, assuming their endorsement reflects the applicant's true capabilities. Option C. Emphasizing a single, exceptional extracurricular achievement as the primary indicator of the applicant's potential for academic success. Option D. Prioritizing the applicant's ability to present well-structured arguments supported by relevant evidence and assessing the logical flow and depth of their reasoning. The correct answer is D. Prioritizing the applicant's ability to present well-structured arguments supported by relevant evidence and assessing the logical flow and depth of their reasoning. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate not only a foundational understanding of academic principles, but also the ability to critically assess information and apply it within a specific context, mirroring the analytical skills expected in higher education. The challenge lies in discerning between superficial understanding and genuine comprehension, and in recognizing the importance of evidence-based reasoning. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's submitted materials, focusing on the coherence of their arguments, the quality of their evidence, and their ability to articulate a clear and logical thought process. This aligns with the American University Entrance Exam's objective of identifying candidates who possess strong analytical and critical thinking skills, essential for success in university-level studies. The regulatory framework for university admissions emphasizes fairness, objectivity, and the selection of candidates most likely to thrive academically. Therefore, a comprehensive evaluation of the applicant's demonstrated abilities, rather than reliance on external endorsements alone, is paramount. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the reputation of the recommender overlooks the core purpose of the entrance exam, which is to assess the applicant's individual merit and potential. This fails to adhere to the principle of evaluating the applicant directly and may introduce bias. Another incorrect approach that focuses only on the applicant's stated interests without examining the depth of their understanding or the evidence supporting those interests risks admitting students who may lack the necessary critical thinking skills to engage with complex academic material. This approach prioritizes superficial alignment over demonstrated capability. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes a single, outstanding achievement without considering the applicant's overall academic profile and demonstrated ability to sustain rigorous study fails to provide a holistic view of the candidate's potential. This can lead to an incomplete assessment and potentially overlook other equally qualified candidates. Professionals tasked with admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a holistic and evidence-based evaluation. This involves clearly defining the criteria for assessment, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated against these objective standards, and using a variety of assessment methods to gain a comprehensive understanding of each candidate's strengths and weaknesses. The process should be transparent and defensible, ensuring fairness and equity for all applicants. Question 7. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new, less secure but significantly cheaper online proctoring system for the American University entrance exam could save the university substantial funds annually. However, concerns have been raised about the system's ability to detect sophisticated cheating methods and the potential for technical glitches that could disadvantage some students. Which of the following approaches best reflects professional decision-making in this scenario? Option A. Propose a pilot program for the cheaper online proctoring system in a non-critical assessment to gauge its effectiveness before considering it for the entrance exam. Option B. Negotiate with the vendor of the cheaper online proctoring system to include additional security features, even if it slightly increases the cost, to mitigate potential risks. Option C. Reject the cheaper online proctoring system outright and continue with the current, more expensive but proven secure system, prioritizing exam integrity above all else. Option D. Implement the cheaper online proctoring system, as the cost savings are significant and the risk of widespread cheating is deemed low based on the analysis. Correct answer is D. Implement the cheaper online proctoring system, as the cost savings are significant and the risk of widespread cheating is deemed low based on the analysis. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed action against potential long-term reputational damage and regulatory scrutiny. The core of the challenge lies in discerning whether a proposed cost-saving measure, while seemingly beneficial on paper, aligns with the ethical obligations and regulatory requirements expected of an institution preparing for an entrance exam. The pressure to demonstrate efficiency can conflict with the imperative to uphold academic integrity and fairness. The correct approach involves prioritizing the integrity of the entrance exam process above all else. This means that any proposed cost-saving measure must be rigorously evaluated to ensure it does not compromise the fairness, security, or validity of the exam. Specifically, this approach would involve seeking alternative, less impactful cost-saving methods or investing in measures that enhance exam integrity, even if they incur initial costs. This aligns with the overarching ethical duty to provide a fair and equitable assessment opportunity for all prospective students, a fundamental principle underpinning university admissions and regulatory expectations for such examinations. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams, while not explicitly detailed here as a specific jurisdiction, universally mandates fairness, transparency, and the prevention of any form of academic misconduct or unfair advantage. An incorrect approach would be to implement the proposed cost-saving measure without a thorough assessment of its impact on exam integrity. This could manifest as reducing essential security protocols for exam administration or opting for cheaper, less secure examination materials. The regulatory and ethical failure here is a direct violation of the principle of fairness. By prioritizing cost reduction over the integrity of the assessment, the institution risks creating an uneven playing field, potentially disadvantaging some candidates and undermining the credibility of the entire admissions process. This could lead to investigations, sanctions, and severe reputational damage, all of which are antithetical to the goals of a reputable educational institution. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the cost-saving proposal outright without exploring any potential for implementation. While caution is warranted, a complete refusal to consider any efficiency improvements might be seen as a failure to manage resources responsibly, which can also be a point of scrutiny. However, in the context of an entrance exam, the risk of compromising integrity far outweighs the potential benefits of minor cost savings. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a multi-stakeholder consultation, including admissions officers, academic integrity committees, and potentially legal counsel, to thoroughly assess the risks and benefits. A risk-based approach is crucial, where the potential for negative impact on exam integrity is assigned a high weight. If any proposed measure carries a significant risk of compromising fairness or security, it should be rejected or significantly modified. The ultimate decision must be guided by the institution's commitment to ethical conduct and adherence to the spirit and letter of any applicable regulations governing academic assessments. Question 8. Analysis of a situation where a prospective student, preparing for the American University entrance exam, expresses significant anxiety about a particular section and asks their assigned academic advisor for tips on what to focus on, and if there are any specific types of questions that tend to appear more often. The advisor knows from previous exam cycles that certain question formats are indeed more prevalent in that section. Option A. The advisor should suggest that the student focus on memorizing key facts and formulas related to the section they find difficult, as this is often sufficient for answering the majority of questions. Option B. The advisor should provide the student with general study strategies for the entire exam, recommend official practice materials, and explain the importance of understanding core concepts across all topics, without revealing specific question patterns or types. Option C. The advisor should share insights into the specific question formats and topics that have historically appeared more frequently in that section, suggesting the student prioritize their study efforts accordingly. Option D. The advisor should offer to review the student's practice test answers and provide direct corrections and explanations for any incorrect responses, ensuring the student understands the right way to answer. The correct answer is B. The advisor should provide the student with general study strategies for the entire exam, recommend official practice materials, and explain the importance of understanding core concepts across all topics, without revealing specific question patterns or types. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and the university's commitment to fair evaluation. The challenge lies in balancing the need to support a student's learning and development with the imperative to uphold the standards of the American University entrance exam. The pressure to assist a student who is struggling, especially when they express genuine effort, can create a conflict between empathy and professional duty. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any assistance provided does not compromise the integrity of the examination process or create an unfair advantage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves providing the student with resources and guidance on effective study strategies and test-taking techniques, while strictly adhering to the examination's rules regarding external assistance during the assessment period. This approach is right because it upholds academic integrity by ensuring the student's performance reflects their own knowledge and abilities. It aligns with the ethical guidelines of educational institutions that prohibit any form of cheating or unauthorized assistance during examinations. By focusing on empowering the student with learning tools rather than providing direct answers or solutions, the instructor acts as a facilitator of learning, which is a core professional responsibility. This respects the principle of fairness to all candidates who are taking the exam under the same conditions. Incorrect approach is analysis. Providing the student with specific questions or answers from past exams or practice materials that are intended to be representative of the actual exam content would be an ethical and regulatory failure. This constitutes unauthorized disclosure of examination materials and directly undermines the validity of the assessment, creates an unfair advantage for the student, and compromises the integrity of the entrance exam process. suggesting that the student focus on memorizing specific facts or formulas without understanding the underlying concepts, or implying that certain topics are more important than others based on insider knowledge, would also be professionally unacceptable. This approach could lead to superficial learning and does not genuinely prepare the student for the comprehensive evaluation. It also violates the principle of providing unbiased and comprehensive guidance to all students. Offering to review the students' work on practice questions in a way that involves correcting their mistakes and providing the correct answers, rather than guiding them to find the solutions themselves, is another failure. This blurs the line between constructive feedback and direct assistance, potentially leading to the student submitting work that is not entirely their own effort. It bypasses the student's own problem-solving process, which is crucial for genuine learning and preparation. Professional reasoning. Professionals in educational settings should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes integrity, fairness, and student development. This involves 1. Understanding and strictly adhering to all university policies and examination regulations. 2. Identifying ethical obligations, such as maintaining confidentiality and ensuring fair assessment. 3. Evaluating the student's request against these policies and ethical standards. 4. Communicating clearly and transparently with the student about what assistance can and cannot be provided. 5. Focusing on empowering the student with learning strategies and resources that promote independent learning and genuine understanding. 6. Documenting any interactions or guidance provided to ensure accountability. Question 9. Benchmark analysis indicates that a student in your introductory course has approached you seeking assistance with an upcoming essay. The student expresses difficulty understanding the core concepts and asks if you could help them brainstorm some ideas and maybe even outline a few paragraphs to get them started. You recall the university's strict academic integrity policy, which prohibits submitting work that is not entirely one's own. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Provide the student with a detailed outline and several example paragraphs to help them understand the structure and content expected for the essay. Option B. Complete a draft of the essay for the student to review and adapt, ensuring it meets the assignment's requirements. Option C. Advise the student to seek help from the university's writing center without further clarification on the academic integrity policy. Option D. Clearly explain the university's academic integrity policy regarding independent work and discuss the specific boundaries of acceptable assistance for this assignment, emphasizing the importance of original thought and research. The correct answer is D. Clearly explain the university's academic integrity policy regarding independent work and discuss the specific boundaries of acceptable assistance for this assignment, emphasizing the importance of original thought and research. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in academic settings where students may seek to leverage external resources in ways that blur the lines between legitimate research and academic dishonesty. The professional challenge lies in upholding the integrity of the academic process and ensuring fair evaluation for all students, while also providing guidance and support. It requires careful judgment to distinguish between acceptable collaboration and prohibited practices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves clearly communicating the university's academic integrity policy to the student and explaining the specific boundaries of acceptable assistance. This aligns with the core ethical principles of academic institutions, which prioritize honesty, fairness, and the development of independent learning skills. By referencing the policy, the instructor is grounding their guidance in established university regulations, ensuring consistency and transparency. This approach fosters an environment where students understand expectations and can learn from their mistakes without facing undue punitive measures, promoting a culture of academic responsibility. Incorrect approaches analysis. Providing direct answers or completing the assignment for the student constitutes academic misconduct and violates the principle of independent work. This undermines the learning objectives of the assignment and creates an unfair advantage over other students. It also fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic integrity. Ignoring the student's request and offering no guidance leaves the student in a difficult position and does not address the potential for misunderstanding the academic integrity policy. This approach fails to provide necessary support and can inadvertently lead to future academic integrity issues. Suggesting the student consult with a tutor without first clarifying the university's policy on academic integrity misses an opportunity to educate the student on the specific rules they must follow. While tutoring can be beneficial, it should be framed within the context of the university's expectations for academic honesty. Professional reasoning. Professionals in academic settings should approach such situations by first consulting and clearly understanding the relevant institutional policies on academic integrity. When a student seeks assistance that may border on academic dishonesty, the professional should engage in a direct and transparent conversation with the student, explaining the policy and the specific expectations for the assignment. The goal is to educate and guide the student towards acceptable practices, reinforcing the importance of academic honesty and the value of independent learning. If the student's request clearly violates policy, the professional should explain the consequences of such action. Question 10. The assessment process reveals that a candidate for admission to the American university has demonstrated exceptional academic performance in their coursework and achieved a strong score on a standardized entrance examination. However, their personal essay, while well-written, expresses a perspective that challenges some of the university's long-standing traditions and values. The admissions committee is divided on how to proceed. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of fair and comprehensive university admissions at the American university? Option A. Admit the candidate based on their strong academic record and standardized test scores, while noting the essay's content for potential future discussion within the university. Option B. Defer the decision, requiring the candidate to submit a revised essay that more closely aligns with the university's stated values before a final determination can be made. Option C. Reject the candidate due to the essay's challenging perspective, prioritizing adherence to established university traditions over individual expression. Option D. Conduct a holistic review of the entire application, including the essay, to assess the candidate's potential contribution to the university community, considering their unique perspective as a potential asset. The correct answer is A. Admit the candidate based on their strong academic record and standardized test scores, while noting the essay's content for potential future discussion within the university. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a candidate's potential for admission to the American university. This scenario is professionally challenging because university admissions involve subjective judgment alongside objective criteria, requiring a careful balance to ensure fairness and adherence to institutional policies. The university must uphold its commitment to academic integrity and equitable opportunity for all applicants. The correct approach involves a holistic review of the candidate's application, considering academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and recommendations, all within the established admissions criteria and guidelines of the American university. This approach is ethically sound and professionally justifiable, as it aligns with the university's stated mission and commitment to selecting well-rounded individuals who will contribute positively to the academic community. It respects the diversity of applicant experiences and allows for a comprehensive understanding of their potential beyond standardized metrics. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on standardized test scores, disregarding other crucial aspects of the application. This fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of academic potential and can lead to the exclusion of highly capable students who may not excel in a single testing format. It also risks violating the university's commitment to diversity and inclusion by potentially disadvantaging applicants from different educational backgrounds or those with learning differences. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize anecdotal evidence or personal biases over documented achievements and stated university criteria. This introduces subjectivity and unfairness into the admissions process, potentially leading to discrimination and undermining the credibility of the university's selection procedures. Admissions decisions must be based on established, transparent criteria, not personal opinions or external pressures. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to deviate from the established admissions rubric without proper justification or oversight. This compromises the integrity of the process and can create a perception of favoritism or inconsistency. All deviations must be documented and approved according to university policy, ensuring accountability and fairness. The professional decision-making process for university admissions should involve 1. Understanding and strictly adhering to the American university's published admissions policies and criteria. 2. Conducting a comprehensive review of all application components, giving appropriate weight to each as defined by the university. 3. Engaging in collaborative discussions with other admissions committee members to ensure a balanced and objective evaluation. 4. Documenting the rationale for all admissions decisions, particularly for borderline cases or those requiring special consideration. 5. Maintaining confidentiality and impartiality throughout the entire process. Question 11. Research into the ethical guidelines governing the American University entrance exam reveals a student approaching an administrator with a request for specific questions from the upcoming exam, stating they are under immense pressure and believe this will help them secure their place at the university. The administrator must decide how to respond. Option A. Advise the student that while direct questions cannot be shared, they can offer general topics that are likely to be covered on the exam, based on the curriculum. Option B. Provide the student with a few sample questions that are representative of the exam's difficulty and format, assuring them that these are not actual exam questions but will help them prepare. Option C. Immediately report the student to the university's disciplinary committee for attempting to solicit exam content without any further interaction. Option D. Politely but firmly refuse the request, explaining that providing exam questions would compromise the integrity of the entrance process, and offering to connect the student with university resources for academic support and stress management. The correct answer is D. Politely but firmly refuse the request, explaining that providing exam questions would compromise the integrity of the entrance process, and offering to connect the student with university resources for academic support and stress management. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The student's request, while seemingly minor, crosses a boundary into academic misconduct. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the university's ethical standards and regulatory framework for academic honesty, while also addressing the student's underlying academic concerns in a constructive manner. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing interests. The correct approach involves a direct and ethical refusal of the student's inappropriate request, coupled with an offer of legitimate academic support. This aligns with the American University entrance exam's regulatory framework, which emphasizes principles of fairness, honesty, and the prevention of academic dishonesty. Specifically, university policies and ethical guidelines for educators mandate that any form of academic misconduct, including assisting a student in gaining an unfair advantage, is strictly prohibited. By refusing the request and offering appropriate assistance, the educator upholds these principles, maintains the integrity of the examination process, and models ethical behavior. An incorrect approach of directly providing the student with specific exam questions or answers represents a severe breach of academic integrity and violates the core tenets of the American University entrance exam's regulatory framework. This action constitutes academic misconduct by the educator, undermining the fairness and validity of the assessment. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the student's request without any response fails to address the ethical dilemma and leaves the student in a position where they might still attempt to seek illicit means of obtaining an advantage. While not as egregious as directly assisting in misconduct, it neglects the educator's responsibility to guide students towards ethical academic practices and uphold the university's standards. A third incorrect approach of reporting the student to disciplinary authorities without first attempting to understand the student's motivations or offering legitimate support could be seen as overly punitive and may not foster a learning environment. While reporting misconduct is sometimes necessary, a graduated response that prioritizes education and guidance is often more professionally sound, provided the initial request does not represent a clear and immediate threat to exam integrity that warrants immediate escalation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policies and ethical codes. When faced with a request that borders on or crosses into academic misconduct, the professional should first identify the ethical boundaries. The next step is to refuse the inappropriate request clearly and unequivocally. Simultaneously, the professional should assess the student's underlying need and offer legitimate ethical avenues for support, such as study resources, tutoring, or clarification of course material. If the request indicates a pattern of or intent for serious misconduct, escalation to the appropriate university authorities may be necessary, but this should be a considered decision based on the severity and context of the situation. Question 12. Benchmark analysis indicates that a student who has diligently prepared for an upcoming American University entrance exam is approached by a close friend who is struggling significantly with the material. The friend, in a moment of desperation, asks the student to share the specific questions and answers from the exam, claiming they will be expelled if they fail. The student is aware that sharing exam content is a direct violation of the university's strict academic integrity policy. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the student? Option A. Politely decline to share the exam questions and answers, explaining that it would violate academic integrity policies and compromise the fairness of the exam for all students. Option B. Provide the friend with the specific questions and answers to help them pass the exam and avoid expulsion. Option C. Ignore the friend's request and hope the situation resolves itself without any intervention. Option D. Advise the friend to try and find the answers online or from other sources without offering direct assistance. The correct answer is A. Politely decline to share the exam questions and answers, explaining that it would violate academic integrity policies and compromise the fairness of the exam for all students. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain client confidentiality while also adhering to the university's academic integrity policies. The student is caught between a commitment to a friend and the potential consequences of academic dishonesty. Navigating this requires careful judgment to uphold both personal integrity and institutional rules. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves politely but firmly declining to provide the specific answers, explaining that doing so would violate academic integrity policies and compromise the trust placed in them as a student. This upholds the principle of academic honesty, which is a cornerstone of university education and professional development. It also respects the university's regulations against cheating and plagiarism, ensuring a fair assessment for all students. This approach prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to established rules, which are paramount in any academic or professional setting. Incorrect approaches analysis. Providing the answers directly to the friend is an ethical failure because it constitutes aiding and abetting academic dishonesty. This violates the university's academic integrity policies, which are designed to ensure that all students are evaluated on their own merit. It also erodes the trust between students and the institution, and between students themselves, by creating an unfair advantage. Suggesting the friend look up the answers themselves without further guidance, while seemingly neutral, can still be problematic. If the student knows the friend is struggling and is in a position to offer specific, targeted help that directly leads to the answers, this could be seen as a subtle form of assistance that skirts the edges of academic dishonesty. The ethical failure here lies in not fully disengaging from the situation and potentially facilitating the friend's circumvention of the learning process. Ignoring the friend's request and hoping the situation resolves itself is an abdication of responsibility. While it avoids direct complicity, it fails to address the ethical dilemma proactively. The university's academic integrity policies often imply a duty to report or at least not facilitate breaches. This passive approach can be interpreted as a lack of commitment to upholding the institution's values. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical principles and adherence to relevant regulations. This involves 1. Identifying the core ethical obligations, in this case, academic integrity and confidentiality. 2. Understanding the relevant rules and policies, the university's academic integrity policy. 3. Evaluating potential actions against these obligations and rules. 4. Choosing the action that best upholds ethical standards and complies with regulations, even if it is difficult or unpopular. 5. Communicating the decision clearly and respectfully, explaining the reasoning based on ethical principles and rules. Question 13. Comparative studies suggest that students often seek assistance with academic assignments that extend beyond standard tutoring. If a student approaches you, an administrator involved in the American University entrance exam process, and requests that you provide them with pre-written essay components for an assignment, citing a lack of time and difficulty with the topic. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the regulatory framework governing university entrance exams and academic integrity? Option A. Provide the student with a few pre-written paragraphs to help them get started, emphasizing that they should rewrite them in their own words. Option B. Politely explain that providing pre-written essay components would violate the university's academic integrity policy and offer to connect them with university resources for academic support and writing guidance. Option C. Advise the student to find a paid service that can assist them with writing the essay, as this is a common practice for students facing time constraints. Option D. Directly refuse the request without further explanation, stating that you cannot help them with their assignment. The correct answer is B. Politely explain that providing pre-written essay components would violate the university's academic integrity policy and offer to connect them with university resources for academic support and writing guidance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived academic needs and the university's established policies regarding academic integrity and the appropriate use of university resources. The student's request, while seemingly aimed at improving their academic performance, borders on seeking an unfair advantage and potentially misrepresenting their own work. Navigating this requires careful judgment to uphold ethical standards, while still supporting student learning within defined boundaries. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves clearly and politely explaining to the student that the university's academic integrity policy prohibits the submission of work that is not entirely their own, and that providing them with pre-written essay components would violate this policy. This approach upholds the fundamental principle of academic honesty, which is a cornerstone of university education, and is implicitly or explicitly covered by the American University Entrance Exams regulatory framework concerning academic standards and ethical conduct. It also aligns with the ethical responsibility of educators to foster genuine learning and critical thinking, rather than enabling academic misconduct. Incorrect approaches analysis. Providing the student with essay outlines or pre-written paragraphs, even with the intention of guiding them, constitutes academic dishonesty. This directly violates the spirit and letter of academic integrity policies, which aim to ensure that all submitted work reflects the student's own understanding and effort. Such an action would undermine the assessment process and could lead to disciplinary action for both the student and the educator. Directly refusing the student's request without explanation or offering alternative, policy-compliant support is also an incorrect approach. While it avoids direct policy violation, it fails to fulfill the educator's role in guiding and supporting students. A complete refusal without offering constructive, ethical alternatives can be perceived as unsupportive and may not address the underlying academic struggles the student is experiencing. Suggesting the student seek external paid services for essay writing is ethically problematic and potentially violates university policies against facilitating academic dishonesty. While not directly providing the work, it directs the student towards a practice that is often considered a form of cheating and undermines the educational process. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university settings should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to academic integrity policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with a student request that may compromise these standards, the process should involve 1. Understanding the request and its potential implications. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and ethical codes. 3. Communicating clearly and respectfully with the student, explaining policy limitations. 4. Offering alternative policy-compliant forms of support, such as academic advising, tutoring, or guidance on research and writing strategies. 5. Documenting the interaction and decision if necessary. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are well-reasoned, defensible, and uphold the integrity of the academic institution. Question 14. Process analysis reveals that a prospective student preparing for the American University Entrance Exam has encountered conflicting advice from peers regarding the acceptable use of certain study materials. Some students claim specific unofficial study guides are essential, while others suggest they are discouraged. The student is unsure which advice to trust and how this might impact their preparation and exam eligibility. Option A. The student should ignore the conflicting advice and continue their preparation using only materials they are already familiar with, without seeking further clarification. Option B. The student should prioritize the advice of the majority of their peers, assuming that widespread consensus indicates the most accurate information. Option C. The student should consult the official American University Entrance Exam Handbook and contact the university's admissions office to clarify the guidelines on acceptable study materials. Option D. The student should proceed with using the study materials that seem most comprehensive, regardless of peer advice or official guidelines, to maximize their preparation. The correct answer is C. The student should consult the official American University Entrance Exam Handbook and contact the university's admissions office to clarify the guidelines on acceptable study materials. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam, coupled with the availability of potentially misleading information, requires careful judgment to uphold ethical standards. The correct approach involves a student proactively seeking clarification from official university sources when encountering ambiguous or potentially inaccurate information. This demonstrates a commitment to understanding the exam's requirements accurately and ethically. Specifically, consulting the official American University Entrance Exam guidelines or contacting the admissions office directly ensures that the student is working with authoritative information. This aligns with the ethical principle of honesty and the regulatory expectation that students will adhere to the stated rules and guidelines of the examination process. By prioritizing official channels, the student avoids misinterpretations that could lead to academic misconduct. An incorrect approach involves relying on unofficial or peer-generated information without verification. This is ethically problematic because it bypasses established channels of communication and can lead to the dissemination or adoption of inaccurate information. This failure to verify can result in a student unknowingly violating exam rules or preparing based on flawed premises, which is a breach of academic integrity. Another incorrect approach is to assume that information shared among peers, even if seemingly widespread, is accurate and sufficient. This is a failure of due diligence. Universities expect students to take responsibility for understanding the examination requirements, and relying on informal networks without cross-referencing official sources is a dereliction of that responsibility. It can lead to misunderstandings about the exam scope, format, or prohibited materials. A further incorrect approach is to ignore potentially conflicting information and proceed with preparation based on initial assumptions. This demonstrates a lack of critical thinking and a disregard for potential discrepancies. Ethically, it suggests a passive acceptance of potentially flawed information, which can have negative consequences for the student and the integrity of the examination process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic approach. 1. Identify the core issue, ambiguity or potential inaccuracy in information related to the exam. 2. Prioritize official sources. Recognize that university-published guidelines and direct communication with admissions are the definitive sources of truth. 3. Seek clarification. Actively reach out to the appropriate university departments or consult official documentation. 4. Verify information. Cross-reference any information received with official sources to ensure accuracy. 5. Act ethically. Make decisions based on verified, accurate information. Upholding academic integrity. Question 15. Regulatory review indicates that an applicant for the American University Entrance Exam has submitted a request for special consideration due to significant personal hardship experienced during the preparation period. The applicant has provided a brief, unverified statement detailing these challenges, but no supporting documentation. The university's established policy for entrance examinations requires a formal application for accommodations with supporting evidence. How should the admissions committee proceed to ensure fairness and adherence to policy? Option A. Offer the applicant a significantly simplified version of the entrance examination to be administered at the next available opportunity. Option B. Initiate a formal review process to request objective documentation from the applicant that substantiates the claimed hardship and its impact on their examination preparation, in accordance with university policy. Option C. Advise the applicant to withdraw their application and reapply for the following academic year, suggesting they can then provide documentation for their hardship. Option D. Immediately grant a waiver of the examination requirement for this applicant, acknowledging their stated personal difficulties. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal review process to request objective documentation from the applicant that substantiates the claimed hardship and its impact on their examination preparation, in accordance with university policy. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to support students facing personal difficulties. The core tension lies in determining the appropriate level of accommodation without compromising the rigor and fairness of the entrance examination process. The university must navigate potential biases, ensure equitable treatment for all applicants, and uphold the established examination standards. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate reasons for accommodation and attempts to gain an unfair advantage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, evidence-based review process that prioritizes fairness and adherence to established university policies for entrance examinations. This approach requires the admissions committee to gather objective documentation supporting the applicant's claim of extenuating circumstances. The review should focus on how these circumstances demonstrably impacted the applicant's ability to prepare for or perform on the examination, rather than on the nature of the circumstances themselves. The university's established policies for handling such situations, which should be transparent and consistently applied, would guide the decision-making process. This ensures that any accommodations granted are justified, equitable, and do not undermine the integrity of the entrance examination. Incorrect approaches analysis. Granting an immediate waiver of the examination based solely on a student's self-reported personal hardship, without any supporting documentation or a structured review, is an incorrect approach. This fails to uphold the principle of equitable treatment for all applicants, as it bypasses the standard assessment process without objective justification. It also risks setting a precedent that could be exploited, compromising the integrity of the admissions process. Offering a significantly easier version of the examination to the applicant without a clear, documented rationale and a standardized process for such modifications is also an incorrect approach. This creates an unfair advantage for the applicant and undermines the comparability of examination results, which is crucial for a merit-based selection process. It also lacks transparency and could lead to perceptions of favoritism, suggesting that the applicant simply retake the examination at a later date without considering the immediate impact of their circumstances on their current application status is an incorrect approach. While retaking might be an option in some cases, it fails to address the applicant's current situation and their desire to be considered for the current admission cycle. It also doesn't acknowledge the potential for reasonable accommodations to be made within the existing framework. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions must adopt a decision-making framework that emphasizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established policies. This involves 1. Understanding and applying university regulations regarding admissions and examinations. 2. Seeking objective evidence to support any claims of extenuating circumstances. 3. Implementing a consistent and documented review process for all such cases. 4. Balancing the need for compassion with the imperative to maintain academic integrity and equitable treatment. 5. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them. Question 16. Consider a scenario where, while completing an application for the American University entrance exam, an applicant realizes they have inadvertently included a phrase in their personal essay that is very similar to a sentence found in a published article they read months ago. They are certain they did not intentionally plagiarize, but the similarity is striking, and they are concerned about how this might be perceived. What is the most appropriate course of action for the applicant? Option A. Proceed with submitting the application as is, hoping the similarity will not be noticed or will be dismissed as a common phrasing. Option B. Contact a friend who is already a student at the university to ask for advice on how to subtly alter the essay to avoid detection. Option C. Revise the personal essay to remove the similar phrase without informing the admissions office. Assuming this resolves the issue. Option D. Immediately contact the admissions office to explain the situation, acknowledge the oversight, and inquire about the best way to address it. The correct answer is D. Immediately contact the admissions office to explain the situation, acknowledge the oversight, and inquire about the best way to address it. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the core principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected of students entering a university. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate and responsible course of action when faced with a situation that could be perceived as a breach of academic honesty, even if unintentional. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine mistakes and deliberate attempts to gain an unfair advantage. The correct approach involves proactively and transparently communicating the situation to the relevant university authority. This demonstrates honesty, accountability, and a commitment to upholding academic standards. By admitting the oversight and seeking guidance, the applicant signals their understanding of the importance of original work and their willingness to rectify any potential issues. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of academic integrity, which emphasize honesty, trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. Universities typically have policies in place that encourage students to report such matters, often with provisions for leniency when issues are self-reported and addressed promptly. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation and hope it goes unnoticed. This demonstrates a lack of integrity and a disregard for academic rules, could be interpreted as an attempt to deceive the university and gain an unfair advantage, leading to severe disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to conceal the oversight or to downplay its significance. This also reflects a lack of honesty and a failure to take responsibility for one's actions. Such behavior undermines the trust essential to the academic community and is likely to be viewed unfavorably by admissions committees. Finally, an approach that involves seeking to blame others or external factors for the oversight, rather than taking personal responsibility, is also professionally unsound. It indicates an unwillingness to learn from mistakes and a lack of maturity. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a clear assessment of the ethical implications, a thorough understanding of relevant university policies. Even at the entrance exam stage, the principles are similar, and a commitment to transparency and honesty. Applicants should ask themselves, what is the most ethical and responsible way to handle this situation, considering the university's values and my own integrity? Proactive communication and a willingness to address potential issues head-on are generally the most advisable strategies. Question 17. The performance metrics show a significant dip in a particular applicant's grades during their final year of high school, raising concerns about their academic preparedness for university-level studies. The applicant has provided a brief explanation, citing personal family challenges during that period. The admissions committee must decide how to proceed with this application. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Request additional, unrelated personal anecdotes from the applicant to gauge their resilience, rather than focusing on the academic performance dip. Option B. Admit the applicant without further scrutiny, assuming that the personal challenges are sufficient justification for the grade dip and that all applicants deserve an opportunity. Option C. Automatically reject the application due to the concerning performance metrics, as they indicate a lack of consistent academic ability. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's entire academic record, including the performance metrics and the provided explanation, and consider any other relevant supporting documents before making a decision. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's entire academic record, including the performance metrics and the provided explanation, and consider any other relevant supporting documents before making a decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of student retention and institutional reputation. The admissions committee must make a judgment call that upholds ethical standards without resorting to arbitrary or discriminatory practices. Careful consideration of the evidence and adherence to established university policies are paramount. The correct approach involves a thorough, individualized review of the applicant's file, considering all available information, including the performance metrics, any mitigating circumstances provided by the applicant, and the university's stated admission criteria and policies on academic integrity. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with principles of fairness and due process. It ensures that decisions are based on a comprehensive understanding of the applicant's situation and are consistent with the university's commitment to admitting qualified students who can succeed academically. Specifically, it respects the applicant's right to be evaluated based on their merits and potential, while also safeguarding the academic standards of the institution. An incorrect approach would be to automatically reject the applicant solely based on the performance metrics, without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge that performance metrics can sometimes be influenced by factors outside of a student's control, and may not represent their full potential or ability to succeed in the university's academic environment. It also risks being perceived as arbitrary and lacking in due diligence, potentially leading to accusations of unfairness. Another incorrect approach would be to admit the applicant without any consideration of the performance metrics, assuming that all applicants deserve a chance regardless of their academic indicators. This disregards the university's responsibility to maintain academic rigor and to admit students who are adequately prepared for its programs. It could lead to a decline in academic standards and negatively impact the learning experience for all students. A further incorrect approach would be to seek external opinions or anecdotal evidence not directly related to the applicant's academic record or stated qualifications. This introduces subjective biases and can lead to decisions that are not grounded in objective criteria or established university policies, undermining the integrity of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a systematic evaluation of all relevant information, a clear understanding of university policies and ethical guidelines, and a commitment to fairness and transparency. Professionals should gather all available data, consider potential mitigating factors, consult relevant policies, and make a reasoned decision that upholds both academic standards and ethical principles. Question 18. The investigation demonstrates that a student submitted an essay containing significant portions of text that closely mirrored published academic work without proper attribution. The university's academic integrity policy outlines a process for addressing such allegations, emphasizing education and fair resolution. The student, when initially contacted, expressed confusion about the citation requirements and appeared genuinely distressed by the accusation. Which of the following represents the most appropriate initial course of action for the university administrator responsible for handling this matter? Option A. Immediately issue a failing grade for the course and suspend the student for 1 academic year, citing the severity of plagiarism. Option B. Schedule a meeting with the student to discuss the specific instances of unattributed text, explain the university's citation requirements and academic integrity policy, and allow the student to provide their perspective before any determination is made. Option C. Dismiss the allegation as a misunderstanding due to the student's distress and lack of familiarity with citation rules, and advise the student to be more careful in the future. Option D. Forward the essay and all related materials to the university's legal counsel for immediate prosecution of academic misconduct. The correct answer is A. Immediately issue a failing grade for the course and suspend the student for 1 academic year, citing the severity of plagiarism. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide a fair and supportive environment for students facing academic difficulties. The pressure to maintain high academic standards can conflict with the ethical obligation to assist students in understanding and rectifying their mistakes. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine misunderstanding and deliberate academic misconduct. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, educational, and fair process. It begins with a clear communication of the suspected academic integrity violation, providing the student with specific details and evidence. The student is then given an opportunity to respond and explain their actions. This aligns with the principles of due process and natural justice, ensuring the student is aware of the allegations and has a chance to be heard. The subsequent steps, which may involve educational interventions or disciplinary actions based on the findings, are guided by the university's established academic integrity policy. This policy, developed in accordance with best practices for academic institutions, provides a framework for consistent and equitable handling of such matters, emphasizing learning and deterrence over purely punitive measures where appropriate. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediate and severe disciplinary action without a thorough investigation or opportunity for the student to respond. This fails to uphold the principles of due process and fairness, potentially leading to an unjust outcome and damaging the student's academic career. It bypasses the established procedures designed to ensure a comprehensive understanding of the situation. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the potential violation without proper investigation, especially if there is credible evidence. This undermines the university's commitment to academic integrity and can create an environment where such violations are not taken seriously, potentially encouraging future misconduct. It neglects the responsibility to uphold the academic standards of the institution. A third incorrect approach is to offer a lenient outcome solely based on the student's emotional distress or personal circumstances, without adequately addressing the academic integrity breach itself. While empathy is important, it should not override the need to address the violation and reinforce the importance of academic honesty. This approach risks setting a precedent that personal hardship can excuse academic misconduct, which is ethically unsound and detrimental to the academic community. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university setting should approach suspected academic integrity violations by first adhering to the institution's established policy and procedures. This typically involves a multi-step process: notification of the alleged violation, providing the student with the evidence, offering the student a chance to respond, conducting a fair and impartial investigation, and then determining an appropriate outcome based on the findings and the policy. This systematic approach ensures fairness, transparency, and consistency, while also serving an educational purpose for the student and upholding the integrity of the academic program. Question 19. The analysis reveals that Ms. Anya Sharma's personal essay for the American University entrance exam includes a detailed account of her leadership role in a significant community service project. However, upon cross-referencing with the organization's records, a discrepancy emerges regarding the duration and specific responsibilities attributed to her in that role. Considering the university's commitment to evaluating applicants based on genuine experiences and ethical conduct, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Proceed with the evaluation of Ms. Sharma's application without addressing the discrepancy, assuming the essay is primarily a narrative and not a factual report. Option B. Immediately reject Ms. Sharma's application due to the factual inaccuracies presented in her personal essay, as this indicates a lack of integrity. Option C. Contact the community service organization for clarification on Ms. Sharma's role and duration of involvement, and independently assess the essay's overall impact and other application components before making a decision. Option D. Inform Ms. Sharma that her application will be placed on hold pending a formal investigation into the accuracy of her essay without seeking external verification. The correct answer is C. Contact the community service organization for clarification on Ms. Sharma's role and duration of involvement, and independently assess the essay's overall impact and other application components before making a decision. Explanation. The analysis reveals a scenario where a student applicant, Ms. Anya Sharma, is seeking admission to the American University entrance exam. She has presented a personal essay that, while compelling, contains factual inaccuracies regarding her participation in a specific community service project. The challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair evaluation with the applicant's potential and the nuances of personal narrative in an entrance exam context. This requires careful judgment to uphold the principles of the examination process without unduly penalizing a candidate for what might be an unintentional embellishment or misunderstanding. The correct approach involves verifying the factual claims made in the personal essay through appropriate channels, such as contacting the stated community service organization for confirmation, while also considering the overall merit of Ms. Sharma's application. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and due diligence expected in university admissions processes. It acknowledges that while personal essays are subjective, they are also expected to be truthful representations of an applicant's experiences. The American University Entrance Exams Guidelines, implicitly, would expect a process that seeks to confirm or clarify potentially misleading information before making a final decision, thereby ensuring an equitable assessment for all applicants. This upholds the integrity of the entrance exam by ensuring that admissions are based on accurate information and genuine qualifications. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify Ms. Sharma based solely on the discrepancy without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of error or misinterpretation and bypasses the opportunity for clarification, potentially leading to an unfair rejection. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the factual inaccuracies entirely and proceed with the evaluation as if the essay were entirely accurate. This undermines the principle of academic honesty and could set a precedent where applicants are not held accountable for the truthfulness of their submitted materials, compromising the integrity of the entire admissions process. A third incorrect approach would be to confront Ms. Sharma aggressively about the inaccuracies without providing her an opportunity to explain or rectify the situation, which is unprofessional and counterproductive to a fair evaluation. Professionals in university admission should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes thoroughness, fairness, and adherence to established guidelines. This involves 1. Initial assessment, reviewing all application components including essays for completeness and apparent adherence to requirements. 2. Red flag identification, recognizing potential discrepancies or issues that warrant further attention, such as factual inconsistencies in personal statements. 3. Investigation and verification, implementing a systematic process to verify flagged information, which may involve contacting external parties or requesting clarification from the applicant, always maintaining professionalism and respect. 4. Holistic review, considering all verified information alongside other application materials to make a well-informed and equitable decision. 5. Documentation, maintaining clear records of the investigation process and the rationale for the final decision. Question 20. Operational review demonstrates that a candidate for the American University entrance exam has been accused of using unauthorized external assistance during the examination. The university's academic integrity policy clearly outlines procedures for handling such allegations, emphasizing a fair and thorough investigation process. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the University Admissions Committee? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of all evidence related to the alleged misconduct, provide the candidate with an opportunity to present their defense, and then make a decision based on the university's established academic integrity policies. Option B. Immediately disqualify the candidate and ban them from future admissions without further investigation, citing the seriousness of the accusation. Option C. Ignore the allegation as it is difficult to definitively prove, and proceed with evaluating the candidate based on their other application materials. Option D. Offer the candidate a conditional acceptance contingent on them retaking the exam under stricter supervision, without formally investigating the current allegation. Correct answer is B. Immediately disqualify the candidate and ban them from future admissions without further investigation, citing the seriousness of the accusation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead students to seek unfair advantages, necessitating a robust framework for upholding ethical standards. Careful judgment is required to balance support for students with the imperative to maintain the credibility of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of the alleged misconduct. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the student with an opportunity to respond to the allegations, and applying the university's established disciplinary procedures consistently and fairly. This aligns with the principles of due process and academic integrity, ensuring that decisions are based on facts and established rules, thereby protecting the reputation of the American University entrance exam and the institution. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the allegations without a proper investigation. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic integrity and could allow a student who has engaged in misconduct to gain an unfair advantage, undermining the fairness of the admissions process for all other applicants. It also neglects the university's ethical obligation to address potential breaches of its academic policies. Another incorrect approach would be to impose a severe penalty without allowing the student to present their side of the story or without a clear understanding of the extent of the misconduct. This violates principles of fairness and due process, potentially leading to an unjust outcome and damaging the university's reputation for equitable treatment of its applicants. A third incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the student's potential or past achievements without adequately addressing the current allegations of misconduct. While a student's overall profile is important, it should not overshadow the need to investigate and address serious breaches of academic integrity. Ignoring such allegations would compromise the integrity of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge and document the allegation. 2. Initiate a fair and impartial investigation, gathering all relevant evidence. 3. Provide the accused student with clear notice of the allegations and an opportunity to respond. 4. Review the evidence and the student's response in light of established university policies and procedures. 5. Make a decision based on the findings and apply appropriate sanctions if misconduct is confirmed, ensuring consistency with past practices. 6. Communicate the decision and the rationale to the student.